year was that actually made, you think?
About 2010.
That's awesome.
It's just got a lot of miles on it.
A lot of miles. Okay. We had a great class. First off, before I'll open it up for questions, I wanted to thank obviously our staff, the people in our facility. There's too many of them to name. They've been fabulous in recruiting. This year we had sellout crowds at home. We had unbelievable attendance. The fans, huge impact in recruiting. We've talked about it before when these young men come to our games and they see our stadium full and as loud as they were. And as I said early in the year, our Oklahoma State people are learning how to be big-time college football fans, and I appreciate them for that. That makes a big difference in recruiting. The other thing that's interesting is our facilities. We still have families, prospects who come on campus and then get in our building, and they're just mesmerized at the architecture, the space, everything that we have. Even it's, I don't know, what, 7 years old, 8 years old, however old our facility is. People see it as brand new because the upkeep is spotless and perfect. And they now travel around to other places that have new facilities, and we still get comments on this could be the most feasible and usable facility in the country. So obviously that goes out to Coach Holder and Mr. Pickens for their hard work years ago to put us in a position to have success from a facility standpoint. Academics, because we had 1,000 on the APR, I don't think there's any question that's influential and or influences parents, attracts the right people that will fit our culture here. Marilyn Middlebrook and her staff have been unbelievable, and I know that impacts our recruiting. President Hargis, it's still somewhat amazing to me that anytime we call over and ask him to visit with a recruit and their family, he always makes time, and we're very appreciative of that. Sometimes that influences a young man and or his family. Sometimes like anything else, they don't have interest. In recruiting, we get young men that come here, and I don't know that they really care to talk to me. But you never know what can instigate a young man to want to come to your university. And President Hargis has communicated face-to-face, taken time, 15, 20, even 30 minutes at a time to visit with some families. And that's probably not normal protocol for a president of university. He's been tremendous for us. The staff on campus, the willingness to work together with the athletic and the academic community is strong. I think the parents sense that. That helps us in recruiting. And then the people of Stillwater, the community. When we take them around and they go out to eat restaurants over here on the east side and downtown, we get them out, and people are very willing to just be themselves, which is open arms and friendly. So there's a lot of people to thank. Oklahoma State football continues on the rise. It gets easier for us to recruit every year. It's interesting, with the early signing period, we had some poachers, not as many as in the past, but we had a few poachers, and the majority of them failed. And I thought that was interesting. The early signing period is the best thing that's ever happened to college football. It's going to create and improve the equality and parity in the game. We're seeing more and more of it, as I had mentioned for 3 or 4 years now. I said it in August, and if you looked at the Big 12 conference, you'll see it again. And the early signing period is going to balance out college football, Power 5 conference schools over a period of 3 or 4 years. So we're really excited about it. What that does is it forces us, in our opinion, and I'm speaking about Oklahoma State football, I don't know what anybody else's opinion is, forces us to do our job, to go out, to evaluate, to get to know the young men, find out everything, get all the information we can about them, make a decision on them, and move forward. And I think that's great for college football. So if you guys have any questions on our class, I'm ready to roll.
How nice is it, Mike, for you though, to get on the plane to go to the bowl, and you can commit 99% of your brain to the bowl instead of maybe 75% of your brain to the bowl, because you always got recruiting hanging over you.
Well, we get the poachers, the ones that come after us that get into the latter part of December and or January. And I know you were speaking in reference to the bowl, but for me, it's a break. I mean, it's over with. I mean, we may pick up one or two. If we come up short in an area, we have 6 more weeks to go out and do our job and find another one. There's young men out there that have been overlooked. Okay, recruiting is certainly not a perfect science. The NFL spends millions and millions and millions of dollars and they still fail. And we do the same thing. So this allows us to say, okay, we've got a number here, maybe another number, but for the most part, we don't have to continue to pull along young men that have been recruited to our program for months and months and months. Let's get them signed up. Let's move on down the road and get rid of all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's going to help clean this game up, in my opinion.
You just talked a lot about how good the early signing period has been for you. I know you don't typically have your head out there listening to the rest of college football. There are a number, and I'm going to guess you probably would equate this to those poachers. There are a number of coaches that aren't enjoying this very much. It's almost like they're seeing recruits that could be in their class that they think later on they could get pulled off the table now.
Yeah, if you just look at what's out there, and I don't really know what anybody else is saying, but the point is this: do your job, okay? And don't ride the wave up through the middle of January, and then when you try to hang on, quote, 4 or 5 star kids, and you lose out, and then you drop back to a list where schools have done their job to the best of our knowledge and yank kids away. We had a couple poachers hit us last night. They failed. Traditional poachers that failed last night because of the early signing period. Well, there's the only reason that they're doing it is because they went after something else and they didn't get it. So they're going to look and say, look at this list. We'll go get this young man. He's a pretty good prospect. Those guys bring guys in. They develop them in the program. They build them in the culture, and they have success. So the reason that some people don't want it is because they want to poach late in the recruiting process. And what that does is that causes cheating and bad feelings amongst other people. So this signing day has just forced us all to do our job. Now, is it strenuous? Sure it is. Okay, you finish up, you have recruiting weekends, you have home visits, you have school visits. Should invest in a helicopter. That's what I would do. You can get other places. Don't tell me about the problems, just give me a solution. Okay, you get in one, the little thing goes like this, and you fly around quick. That's a solution. Or you can sit around and complain about you don't have enough time. But we're all in bowl games. What's the difference? So our bowl game's the 28th. Other schools don't have to play till January. They actually have more time than we do. So we had finals week in the middle of December this year. Okay, so we don't get to practice for those 5 days. So that didn't really fit our schedule either. We can either complain about it or we can just find a solution to it. So we found a solution to it in our opinion. We love our class. The best thing they've done is put early signing period in. And the people that are saying it's not is because they want to poach other schools. I think this is awesome because now you say, look, here's the deal. These guys are going to fit our culture. We think they can help us win a Big 12 championship. Let's go get them and let's roll. It's better for everybody.
You talk about loyalty, and the guy who was committed in your class the longest is actually your quarterback. For what I understand, made a concerted effort to get his letter in first today. Is that all true?
Got it in first because I got secondhand information. I have not talked to him this morning, but he said it's hard to lead when you're in the back. So I'm all in.
Can you talk about what you think of Spencer Sanders?
I think he's a special player. He's been raised the right way. He's got a good mama and daddy at home, which generally is a good indication that they'll be quality young men that fit our culture. He's a winner. I love that he's labeled as a dual threat quarterback. He is a pocket passer that can run. And so we're excited about him being a part of our program. He's been very loyal from start to finish and had a lot of opportunities to not be loyal. And I will say this, the coaching staff at Denton Ryan was as upfront and honest and as strong as any as I've seen in doing things the right way. The young man said he wanted to come to school here. There's other people coming in over the last month, trust me. And they said until he says he wants to look at another school, then we're going to do the best we can to hold you off and do what's right. They were tremendous. They know what's going on. They handled it the right way.
Are you, when you think of, would you say Sanders is your most complete quarterback combining athleticism and arm since Zach Robinson? And then, Zach developed into a better thrower. Would you say this is the most complete quarterback you've ever brought in as a freshman?
Off of high school tape, yes.
So typically you bring in a quarterback and we project, okay, what's he going to look like in a year or two? Except with this guy, it's more like, what's he going to look like in June, and is he going to start this year? Is that what you're bringing him in for, to give him a chance to win the job, even as a true freshman?
Yes, but we tell them all that, and we all know that some may have more capability than others. Most offensive linemen probably aren't going to play as a freshman, so on and so forth. I know one thing he's good at. He's good at fishing. He spent 2.5 hours fishing on my ranch on his official visit here, and I went out to fish with him, and he had his backpack fishing tackle box on his back, and he had his pole, and he was going from different ponds to ponds, and I walked up and tried to fish next to him because I was still trying to recruit him, be nice to him and all that. He kept going away from me. You know how real fishermen don't want to be around you when you're fishing, so I'd follow him around, and then I realized that he was trying to get away from me in a nice way, and we spent an hour and a half fishing on 3 different ponds on my ranch. He never said a word to me. He just kept moving away from me, so finally I just left him alone and went out and yelled at him, Bill. I said, Spencer, your 48-hour period is expiring in the next 10 minutes, and the last thing that I want to do is to keep you here longer than 48 hours so anything could happen. I said, so unfortunately, you're going to have to go. And so he's like, so he's fishing, and he's walking back to the car. So we go to the driveway, and I'm talking to his mom and dad. They've been in the house. And I said, okay, you guys got to load up in the truck and go home. Because he was here. We were playing a game. I don't know who we played. He was here on the weekend. So we were getting ready to leave, and he was nowhere to be found. He was in the front pond fishing because it was on the driveway, and he wanted to get picked up on the way out. So I know a lot about that. The rest of it, he's a great prospect. He's very humble. From all the rewards and things that he's received, awards, he never says a word. Very humble. So we're excited about what he brings to the table.
What can he do between now and June that can be applied to Oklahoma State football? You know what I mean?
Well, he's hooping now. He's playing basketball now. So what I would recommend is to enjoy his high school career, to be around his friends. Once he picks football back up, he'll be fine. He doesn't need to throw a football for a couple months. He needs to rest, in my opinion, and just enjoy his career. And when everything will get started eventually, it'll move really fast, but he'll be fine. He just needs to continue on with what he's done.
Are you allowed to send him coaching tape?
That rule has changed. Workout manuals, strength and conditioning. He has to come to our campus, in my opinion, for that. We have not done that, just from a standpoint that we really don't send a lot of stuff out. So I would have to defer to Yursich and them and Ben Dyson on what the new rule is. That has changed so much, Bill, that I don't pay much attention to it because we don't send out the X's and O's information.
Staying with offense, I was going to ask you, Josh Henson has 5 kids. I think they've all turned their LOIs in. Mm-hmm. And at one point in your camp this summer, they were all here at the lineman camp, and they literally lined up tackle to tackle and looked like a real deal kind of offensive line. Talk about that Henson group.
Well, we're excited about them. We got 3 of them from the state, which we love, in-state players. I think we signed 7 kids this year. I'm not sure. that were in state. Is that right? 7? That's lucky. That's a good guess. But we love to take the in-state kids. But we got quality young men. They're big. You know, they're long. They've got long arms. The one young man we signed from Houston, we think is going to be a tremendous center for us. He's 6'3". He's going to be about 300 pounds, got great feet. But the other guys are long and rangy. And so it's what you need in a class. You know, you need to have 4 or 5 of those big guys, put them in the culture, let Rob Glass handle them for a couple years, change their bodies, and then they'll be ready to play after they've been in the program a couple years.
Following up a little bit more specifically, Hunter Anthony is a local kid. What did you see in his recruitment and what he'll bring to this program?
Well, you know, Josh is from Tuttle, and so he was able to get on him early. He's got an older brother that was at Tuttle that went to, he's down at, I think, North Texas, and he was injured. Now he's coming back, and he's really gotten big. So we're expecting his body to really develop over the next 24 months, and he stayed with us all along. You know, just a typical kid that's going to be completely different in 2 years.
I don't know if you knew this. You mentioned the center, Tyrese Williams. Mm-hmm. He was actually the MVP at the Houston Regional for the Nike Opening, and Bray was the MVP in Frisco for the Dallas Regional. So that was against pretty good competition.
Sure, we feel good about them. We think that they'll develop. Again, you can't ask a whole lot of them in the first 2 years. Sometimes they can be a little more of an impact after the first year. Pretty rare. But when you take a number of guys that are averaging about 305 pounds across the front, you know, you figure that in 2 years they're going to average about 320. And so it'll be nice to build that back up. And quite honestly, with this class, with what we have now, this is the first time that we've got our numbers back in the offensive line in about 6 years. That's how long it takes to build it back up. So it's difficult to let that happen, but we finally got it built back up.
What can C.J. Moore do for you as a freshman?
You know, would have more of an opportunity to get on the field than a big guy. The skill players, we stress to them to come in ready to play. The health during August, the mental, their ability to absorb information and spit it out in a fast pace, like what we run in our style of offense. Hard to tell, but there's not ever been a skill player that we've said don't get ready to play as a freshman. We would prefer to play them. We need numbers. The style of offense that we have, you know, we have to play 6 to 8 receivers, 2 or 3 cowboy backs, and 3 running backs. So hopefully we'll have some impact from those freshmen, and he could very well be one of those guys.
Did you play Damian Davis as a freshman? Body type just about identical to C.J.
CJ's faster, twitchy. You know, that's a great comparison. Damian was very twitchy. CJ's twitchy. Good hands, rebounding types. Body's going to change completely because of the different things that he did. You know, he really hasn't developed his body like he will over the next year. But a good comparison with Damian Davis. You have a question here?
Yeah, with the way offenses in the Big 12 are obviously continuing to grow and grow, 7 defensive backs, is that becoming a point of emphasis for you guys in recruiting?
We feel like in this league you're going to have to play more 190 to 200 pounders on the field at once. You know, in a sense, we play 3 linebackers. You know, I'm not so sure it can't go to 2 and 5 DBs all the time. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Things you have to talk about. You know, what's the majority in the league that you play in? This league's different than the SEC. So we have to look at things that we may have to do to be advantageous for our defense to slow teams down in this league by the majority. And one of those areas is the safety type, the 200-pound kids that can support the run and also play man at times on that slot receiver. May be advantageous for us. We'll have to see. But at times we get to a point where there's 4 or 5 scholarships on one side of the ball or the other, and you take what would be the best available, and then you got to mix and match it. And then the next year, which would be the 19 class, you make up for it in that class.
In that group, Jason Taylor, another local kid, what do you see in him?
Very athletic, played both sides of the ball, comes from a program that's used to winning a lot of games. Carl Albert has done it the right way for a long time, and they have winning instilled in them. There's toughness. They still play physical football, and I think he's just scratching the surface. He's a basketball player, so he hadn't had a lot of time in the weight room. In high school, even at those bigger schools in Oklahoma that are really far along, the guys that are multi-sport athletes don't get quality time in the weight room. Like our guys are going to go into a January, February, early March conditioning that's out of this world. Well, those guys don't get it. They get a little bit in the summer. So should really develop once he gets here.
And I know you've talked a lot about social media and recruiting and kids' attention spans. How have those conversations changed in this recruiting process?
Well, it's completely different. I used to write 40 or 50 letters, handwritten letters a week. And it was a difficult adjustment for me to get out of that. And then I realized that none of those things were, maybe not none, but the majority of them weren't a factor anymore. So you got to get off the minority and get to the majority. With social media, communication, we have the best graphics guys in the country. We've got a group of, Orange Power Studios and all the people that work there and our graphics people. We've got huge Power 5 conference schools trying to hire our guys away because they're the best in the country. Well, they're way more important than me writing a letter, because as you know, nobody can go without a minute of looking on their phone to see what's going on. And especially the generation, these millennials that are 16, 17, 18 years old, they live on their phones. So that communication is way more important than handwritten communication from coaches.
Kind of along that same line, you mentioned that the helicopter obviously made it easier for you to get around. But how influential was that on the recruits, seeing a coach flying in on a helicopter rather than coming in on a SUV or something like that?
Well, they all had a good time. It was interesting when we were setting it down. There was never less than 6 to 8 people out there videoing and phones. Same thing. Everybody's doing this, right? And so that was pretty cool. But for me, I go back to how much time do we have on the road? There's a number of young men that we have to see. Like almost every player on this list, I have seen him at his location. I've still got to get to, I got to get way down south. I didn't get to Houston and off down in that area. But everybody else, I was able to get there and visit with the coach and visit with the young man and or their parents on that location and say, hey, thanks, appreciate what you've done. I appreciate the help you've given us with your player and or your son. And some of the parents show up, some don't. The others have certainly been here, but they have that option. So that gives me an opportunity to go to those schools, see the young man, see the coaches, great job, appreciate all the help, and move on. And the work that I could accomplish in one day would take 3 days in a car. So that's one way you help yourself, or we do. I don't know. I'm sure there's people that are smarter than us. That's one thing that we have done to help combat the early signing period.
2 more player questions. Jason asked about the defensive backs, and you picked up 2 of those guys pretty late. Tanner McAllister from Rockwall Heath, who played a lot of running back too and put up some huge numbers. And then interesting kid from Arkansas, and Sean Michael Flanagan, another fisherman I hear too.
We were very fortunate. Flanagan was not easy to get. It's extremely difficult to get a young man out of Arkansas that people in that area want. Very difficult. But he's a perfect fit here. He'll be here in January. Very talented, going to be 200 pounds in 6 months probably, skilled. So we were very fortunate that we were able to get him. And essentially, he's like a 2-year guy for us with 4 years because he'll be here in January. He'll go through spring ball. He'll be training with Rob Glass for 6 months. And then with McAllister, he was an interesting take. The first time I saw him was when I went down in the helicopter and was visiting with his coaches. And I knew that he had played both sides of the ball and had a lot of success as a running back. You guys probably know more than me. I think he rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards, and then played corner. But here's what was more impressive to me. When I went in there and was visiting with the coaches, and I believe they lost in the first round of the playoffs, I think. In that game, he played like 160-something plays. He played everything on defense, everything on offense, and special teams, and didn't come off the field. So it tells you two things. One, he's loyal and committed to his organization, and two, he likes to play football. Those are good combinations.
Also wanted to ask you about receiver. You mentioned CJ, but the kid from Kilgore, Shepard's interesting, and he almost played an Army-type offense. It didn't throw the ball a lot, but he's big. And then I think Patrick McCoffman counts in this group as well.
Yeah, he does. His numbers in this class. Patrick's from Douglas, was a quarterback, went to NEO. Coach Dunn found him. We signed him, brought him in last summer, redshirted him, and he'll be in this next class. 6'6", 205 pounds. We're excited about what he does. And then everybody knows about CJ, but Shepard is interesting. His daddy was a pro baseball player, and great home life, values like crazy. Committed early. We liked him from the camp we had out here, and got on board early. And the family did a great job of instilling, your word is your bond. And if you say you're going to Oklahoma State, you're going to Oklahoma State. And what I thought was neat about that is his dad had a history in professional sports. And I think 7 or 8 years in the big leagues. I could be wrong, but played in the minors. So has been exposed to a lot of things that maybe aren't so good in the athletic world compared to in visiting with him. When I went down there, we went to eat lunch at a place downtown in Kilgore, which is a lot like downtown Stillwater. And they took me to a place, and they paid for their food, and we paid for ours. So get that out right now. But regardless, the food there, they had a seafood place, was awesome. And I sat down and listened to his daddy, and he understands both sides of professional sports, which, there's the good and the bad. And I thought it was interesting in the way that they wanted to handle recruiting is he said, I've learned from seeing all of this that I want my son and his word to be a bond. So from day one, when he committed to you, I told him, you don't commit to Oklahoma State unless you're going there, because if you tell him that, I'm teaching you right now at this point in your life, if you tell somebody you're doing it, you're doing it. And I think there could have been other options, because that's a pretty heavily trafficked area in recruiting. But the dad was not going to have any of it, and the dad looks like he could still play today. He's probably 6'4", 225, and so he kind of bouncered the operation there, and we never had any issues. So he was a really interesting recruit. He's a young guy that's going to come in. He's going to get in the weight room. He's going to look completely different, and they list him at what, 6'4"? He's every bit of 6'4". So we're certainly not recruiting many receivers that can run full speed and not hit their head on a coffee table. I put it that way.
That's probably because the guys you're losing this year, those guys, 6'4", 6'3".
Dunn's been great with it. He finds guys he likes, like Patrick. Patrick was just playing receiver, had played quarterback at NEO, right? And Dunn saw him, was like, God, are you kidding me? So we ended up taking him, and we like what we see. We'll find out this fall.
Signed the tight end, Jake Ross, who will be here in January. What kind of role within that Cowboy back position do you hope he can fill?
More of an attached tight end, and I think he's going to be flexible enough to move around. We'll see. The game's changing a little bit, so we're looking at down the line that, maybe more 11, 12 personnel, some of the things we do on offense with our turbos and things, and do it with 2 tight ends. We had success a year ago with 86 and 47, and we like that. We have guys that were could help us some this year, but we didn't have it. They didn't have as much experience. We didn't have that flexibility. I think that he'll give us that. We like where he's at. He's 6'6". He's every bit of 6'6", and he's 240 now, I guess. What they're saying, he'll be 260 in 6 months. So should give us bring another dimension to the fast-paced offense.
Was I don't remember, your first season, was DeJuan your tallest receiver at 6'2"? You know what I mean? You just
Chances of me remembering that far back are 0.
A bunch of little guys and DeJuan.
I'm not sure.
How many big receivers? Everybody's got big receivers out there. They're just so prevalent now.
Yeah, if you want to write an interesting story, you should go in there and talk to Dunn about the way he evaluates and recruits. He's had his experience in the NFL, and he's got a formula that he uses that he learned in the NFL, or he made that up and told me that. I don't know. But I looked at it on paper one time. You know how you scan some stuff, you just put it away and go to something else. But it's pretty interesting, the formula he uses to decide which young men that he wants to take. And I would argue that he's been as successful as anybody in the country at recruiting to a specific position, in my opinion, over an extended period of time. You see a few guys have a flash in the pan for a year or two, but he's been, however long he's been here with me, I don't know, 8 years, something like that. 2011 first year, yeah. Right, so whatever, 6 years, all the same. He's been very successful in recruiting guys that a lot of people don't think are good enough to play, and he sees something in them and a potential to develop them into good players. So
I was going to ask you, one group you didn't think at the beginning, and I'm sure you are thinking of this.
who, the media?
No, I would not think the media.
Oh, I got you.
But in talking to some of these kids during the process, a lot of them talked about their host. For instance, Sean Michael Flanagan talked about Chance Cook, and a lot of them talked about the host and how much it meant locking in with the team through their host.
Well, at the start, I'm glad they video this so I can go back. I talked about the people in that building, the organization from top to bottom. There's too many people to name, but what you're saying is right. Our players do a great job, but they're in a culture where it's instilled in them every day. They understand character, they understand the value, they understand commitment, and they work at it every single day. So what happens is when a prospect and the family come in, we don't have to put on a front. We don't have to change our image and say this is who we are for 48 hours and then go back to who we are. We're the same all the time. What you see is what you get. The head coach has long hair, he likes hunting rattlesnakes, he flies in helicopters, and he'll wear a wrestling singlet. That's who we are, okay? The young men in our culture, that's who they are. This is a non-BS organization. Accountability, structure, teamwork, unselfish, and discipline's a big part of it. That's who we are. So you either want to come here and get an education, be a part of a team, make friends for life, move on, be productive in society, or you go somewhere else. Either way, we're going to take 25 young men that are going to do the right thing, they're going to work in our culture, and we're going to have success, period.
You just said a key word too, 25. I know everybody talks about the early signing period. Correct me if this is wrong, but isn't this the first year? 25 is 25. There's no signing 31. There's no making up for your 85 deficiencies.
Right.
You got to even be better because attrition's going to hurt you more now, isn't it?
Sure. I agree with some of the new legislation there. Some I don't agree with. It's somewhat complicated to get into. I've been prepped on it and have been educated on it, so that means I get about half of it. But there needs to be some adjustments made. For example, we can have a young man who has a year of eligibility left and graduates. So he's been productive, right? He's finished, he graduates, he gets a good job offer, he can go out there and work for Amazon and start at a good salary, and he says, my body's tired, I love Oklahoma State football, but I'm tired. I'm ready to go out, I got a good job with Amazon. Well, we lose that number, but we don't get to replace it for the next year. To me, that's counterproductive, because isn't that what our goal is? Aren't we trying to graduate young men? Aren't we trying to put them out there in society? That's what we do here. And we can't get that number back. And I don't agree with that. Because if they go out the right way, why can't you replace it and take another young man, give him a scholarship, and give him an opportunity? There's only so many out there. Because 75% of the kids that are on our list probably don't have the capability of their parents paying for the tuition, room, board, and expenses associated with 4-year education at a Power 5 conference school. So it's kind of counterproductive. I'm old school, though. I don't believe in that, but I don't make all the rules. So.
Already have a good stable of running backs, so obviously maybe this guy's getting lost in the mix in this recruiting class because of that, but what do you kind of see, where do you see Jeter kind of fitting into that group?
He's going to be a big back. I bet Jeter's going to play at 230-ish, maybe 235 before it's all said and done. He's going to look like 27 does. There's a role for those guys with what they do. He's kind of just laying out there in the bushes. We really like what we see with him. And he's playing basketball now, very athletic. So we're excited about him. You know, the other guys, you know, we did mention the defensive line. We had a number left. So a couple days ago, we talked about Cassidy. So we were able to get with him yesterday morning and tell him that we'd like him to come in and be a part. And then, you know, you have Scott and Lacey. They were on that poached board. You know, we had there's a number of schools that were trying to poach them last night. You got guys that are long and tall and lanky and don't look like defensive linemen right now. But when Rob Glass gets them, they will in about a year. So we're excited about what those guys bring to the table. You know, they're going to be completely different a year from now. You know, and then the linebacker spot. You know, Barron comes from you know, a really good program down there in the Rockwall, Dallas area that has shown signs of really liking to hit and be aggressive. Should grow into being a Sam backer, not necessarily a Mike, but more of a Sam that should be agile enough to move around a little bit and strike you. And then Peel, we think, is really athletic. May fit that outside backer, potential down invert star guy that we use with his athleticism. So, I mean, it's a good class. You know, I say this every year. I don't see a reason why these guys can't compete well enough to win a Big 12 championship. I mean, our job's to coach them up. You know, you got Cardwell, who's extremely talented. You know, we hadn't even talked about Jarek, comes from Evangel Christian. I mean, they have player after player after player after player, and they love this kid. Those guys that have been down there, their coaches been there. We played there, and he's been there as an assistant and head coach, I think, for 11 years. You know, they speak highly of him. You know, Gabe Lemons is coming from Compel. He's a long, rangy guy. He's 6'2" and $170 now, probably be $190 in a year. We got some length there. You know, we got Williams, same thing, coming in from Dallas South Oak Cliff. I mean, he's a tall, rangy guy that hadn't been in the weight room and been developed yet. So it's a good class. They come in, they fit our culture. They do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. They do what they're told. They buy in, have a lot of success, have a lot of fun.
You talked about how this early signing day is going to help you help Oklahoma State. What does the calendar for the month of January look like for you guys now?
Well, we're still out. Now you're on next year's class. You know, it's funny. It's kind of like you guys. Just because it's Saturday, it doesn't mean you get a day off. Just because it's Sunday doesn't mean you get a day off. You know, you essentially work every day. Well, January, we've got either 1 or 2 spots to fill. I won't know for sure for probably another couple weeks. Certainly 1. But January, we'll be out recruiting like crazy looking for 19 because you need to identify 19, to get as much information as possible so you can have this list prepared to sign next December so you don't sit around and complain about the early signing period.
Did you, how seriously did you consider starting Robinson as a freshman here in 05?
Zach? Gosh. Who was our quarterback then, Bobby? I mean, I think he must have, I mean, I'm just going to go back and say he was just a backup guy because Bobby was here. Oh, I can, none at all until we got him in practice. And I remember watching him on the grass fields and thought, this guy's pretty good.
Wasn't he the guy, the famous guy you said, I've seen the future of OSU football?
Gosh.
You wouldn't tell us who, but it kind of connected.
Back then, you know, I just made a lot of stuff up. So, I mean, I wish I could give you an honest answer, but you know, if I would, I probably wouldn't anyway. But I can't remember, Bill. I don't remember who that was.
You started West Lunt in 12, and then you pulled Mason out of redshirt in 14. So, does that history with a freshman quarterback, you know, the circumstances from those two guys were totally different, but would that make you less skittish about maybe really strongly considering a freshman?
Yeah, the first thing is I like the development of Corn Dog, and I like where Woodtie's at. So in the spring, we need to really get into how good are they and what can they do for our team. Can they lead? But we are not scared to play a freshman. So if we have a young man that comes in that has a gift, he's willing to lead, he's tough enough, then it's our responsibility, you're teaching them to put the playbook together to where the young man understands it, to where he can have success. Coach Jones always told us this: if the best players aren't on the field, it's your fault as a coach. You better get the best players on the field. That's the old Barry Sanders story, right? You've heard a million times from on the sideline. And I've always remembered that, and there's no doubt about it. So if we have a freshman at any position, quarterback included, that's the best player, clearly gives us the best chance from a leadership standpoint, from a toughness standpoint, because that's what Mason was, right? He's a great leader, and he's a tough son of a bitch, period. If this guy's that way, or any other player, you got to put him on the field. And it's our job as a coaching staff to make that happen. Because if it's complicated and we can't do it, then we're not very smart. We're out coaching ourselves. Anything good?
Are you done for today?
I am, recruiting? We don't know. We could sign another one. We just have to wait and see. I'm gonna head down to Chris's University Spirit. I thought I was going on down there. Robert, am I going on down there with you?
For just a few minutes.
You got any more of that toffee your wife made?
I don't have any more.
You should have
My
left.
wife got some yesterday.
You should, well, I'll eat hers.
Okay.
That's good. We may sign one more, don't know.
And 4 high school kids and 2 JUCOs coming in early, is that right?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're all over it. You can tell, is what's his name still the editor down there? Sherman?
No, he's gone.
Oh, I was joking with you. All right, guys, thanks.
I caught you, didn't you? You did. You thought I was